if something is objectively bad for you, is there a role for policymakers to say, hey, maybe we should ban that, or is that a bridge too far? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of The Brian Nichols Show. Surprise, I am your host, Brian Nichols, and joining you today from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world. So if you want to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving that pump in the gym, stick around. We'll talk about that later in today's episode, or just scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or simply head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. But first, let's go ahead and dig into today's conversation because, hey, elephant in the room, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not so good for you, right? And one thing we see a lot in the world of public policy is the ability to not just discuss what's good and bad, but then should government play a role? Last time I had today's guest in the show, we were talking about the specific application of this with Zyn pouches, Zyn pouches, I guess they're called, as a substitute for both vaping and for smoking cigarettes. But that issue isn't going away, and it really does dig into, is nicotine good for you? Probably not. Is other things good for you? Probably not. But does government serve a role in actually saying to folks, hey, you shouldn't have that? Or, hey, maybe you should have that. We should force people to have the good stuff. I don't know. Let's dig into that. So joining me here once again on the show is Sophia Hamilton. Sophia, welcome back to the show. How you been?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me back, Brian. I'm really excited to talk about what the role of government is in making us have a healthier life. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm probably going to have a much higher bar to intervention than most people would, because I can see the ways in which the government can really affect our lives. And we're seeing this outside of the scope of nicotine. But I'm really excited to dig into this issue with you today and give some real world examples of how the government is, in my view, overreaching their role to make us healthier.
Absolutely. And we're going to dig into that for sure. And let's go first before folks, we dig into today's episode. If you have not yet checked out the last time Sophia was on the show, please do so. We had a great conversation. I'll include that link in the show notes, but great conversations specifically around not so much the public policy side of things, but more Zyn pouches being an alternative to what we've seen as just the traditional means to get nicotine, which is going to be smoking a cigarette, those silly little like Nicorette patches or whatever, the gum. And then vaping became a big thing back in the late 2010s. And it kind of disappeared there. Oh, not necessarily disappeared. It definitely got throttled back by legislative or rather policymakers in legislatures there. This is an issue that it does have real world ramifications here, but let's first just kind of start with the big question, Sophia, right? And this is something where, as somebody who I used to weigh 385 pounds, right? I was a big fat fatty, and I know the things I was doing weren't good for me, right? But is there a role? Is there a role for government to say this thing is objectively bad, whatever the thing may be, alcohol, smoking or nicotine, eating fatty foods? I know we go back to, I'm old enough to remember with the Michael Bloomberg soda ban or soda tax that they were going to do in New York City, right? Get rid of the big gulps. Like, objectively speaking, those aren't good for you. So then the question goes to, well, if we can objectively agree that certain things aren't good for you, then doesn't government kind of have a role to play here in determining if those things are accessible? And obviously, I have my own biases because I'm coming more from a free market, small L libertarian perspective. But Sophia, you're the policy expert here. You dig into this stuff every single day. Let's start from just the big picture philosophical question. Is there a role? Is it up to government to actually come in and say, hey, these things are bad, therefore we shouldn't have them? Is there even a role for government to say certain things are objective good or bad? Help us kind of figure out this conundrum that's happening, not just behind the scenes, but I think open right now in the conversations across the board. Because MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, they've been really beating the drum here for the past few years. So this is a national conversation. So what's your kind of big picture perspective?
Yeah, so this is I love this conversation. This is something that I think about a lot, and I've given a lot of thought to in the way of like what principles are driving me in my decision making here, especially in light of everything with Make America Healthy Again, MAHA, that movement. So just a little bit of background on me. I am a very like crunchy granola person. I love to make anything that I can from scratch. I have a garden in my little backyard. I do yoga. Like I love to hike. I love all things health. I also love to eat like processed foods. I love things with food dyes. I love Chick-fil-A, as everyone at my job will tell you. I'm always sitting at my desk with a Chick-fil-A lemonade. And so there's balance in my life. So when MAHA started getting big on the scene, I was really excited because I have chronic illnesses. They were really shining light on this and looking at our food supply and all of these different things. And if there's bad things in our food supply, I don't want them there. But that line is, we need to draw like a very strong line as to where government should be intervening. Because if we think, okay, all of these saturated fats aren't good for you, should the government ban that, or should I be allowed to like make that decision, that informed decision, to be eating the heavily processed and fried foods?
Mm-hmm.
That's a personal decision in my mind, whether or not I want to be healthy all the time or indulge when I want to. I think it's a different conversation when we talk about what foods we're having in schools, if we want to have the food dyes in schools. But I think when we want the government to intervene, there needs to be a real harm that substance, that product, that food, whatever it is causing people. And so in the conversation of nicotine and tobacco, sure, they're not great for you. No one's going to argue that, yeah, having the cigarette's good. We all know the dangers associated with cigarettes. And nicotine is separate. Nicotine really isn't bad for you, in my view. It's addictive and it can lead to higher blood pressure. The way that you consume it is really like how it determines how bad it is for you, where like a nicotine pouch, you're going to have a lot less harm than if you were smoking a vape versus smoking a cigarette. And so when I'm just looking at nicotine as a product, it's very similar to caffeine. And I'm sitting here with my pumpkin spice latte filled with caffeine, filled with sugars and God knows what else. Not very crunchy of me. But I look at that and it's, should the government be telling me, no, I can't have that caffeine? It's too much. There's too much processed sugars in there. And that's where I have a hard time, and where I come into the conversation on nicotine and tobacco products of, maybe this isn't the role of government. Mm-hmm. I need to be responsible for making healthy decisions for myself. And I should be having that education. I think the government's role really here is to educate people. I think that's what one of the biggest roles of the FDA should be, is to be telling our healthcare professionals and to just telling our constituents what things are healthy and what's not. Like, what is an actual balanced diet? And giving us a real food pyramid that isn't absolutely just bastardized by lobbyists. And it's a very fine line where government intervention can go poorly. And we're seeing that with nicotine and tobacco policy. And so I both love and hate the MAHA movement, because I think we're getting really excited about healthy living and making better choices. But the government is trying to force that upon people in some instances through mandates and bans. And that's where I get not happy, because if we can do this with one thing, then we can do it with another. If we can do it to nicotine and tobacco, what's next? Alcohol, caffeine? Like, I don't want these limits. I want to be able to make those decisions myself. So that's how I think about what the role of government is.
And by the way, Sophia, like I'm pretty much on the same page as you. The one area where I've taken much more heat, I guess, from some libertarians, which frankly, it does kind of shock me that I do get heat from this, but like recently the HHS, was it HHS under Robert Kennedy, where they just determined that if you receive SNAP benefits, you can no longer use them for garbage foods, right? Like, I think that's a good thing. And here's why. Because if you're taking taxpayer dollars and we're funneling it through these different, welfare entities, by the nature that it's not your money, and if government is going to be playing this role, right, and it's not a conversation of should government be playing this role, if government is in the existing format playing this role, then I don't think it is any sort of like red flag for them to say, hey, you're getting free dollars, you're going to buy certain things, right? Like, we're not going to be this, and this is what, in my opinion, it's turned into be, where you have almost this it's not really a Ponzi scheme, but you have all these big food entities out there, like your Pepsis and your Coca-Colas and your Frito-Lays and the cookie companies. Like, they're all about this, right? They're like, yeah, absolutely. Use the dollars to buy our crappy products that are going to make you sick. We don't care. We're getting rich over this. So, all right, folks, elephant in the room. The world's a mess. Inflation is crushing savings. Politicians keep spending. So what's your backup plan? Oh, you don't have one. Well, if you don't worry. That's why the Expat Money Online Summit exists. From October 10th through the 12th, my good buddy Mikkel Thorup's bringing in global experts to show you how to protect your wealth, secure a second residency, lower your taxes, and even own property abroad. And by the way, it's totally free. So no flights, no hotels, just grab your ticket and tune in. And this year, the focus is on Latin America, with booming opportunities in countries like Argentina, El Salvador, Panama, and Paraguay. These doors are open right now, but only if you take action. And how do you do that? Well, head to expatmoneysummit.com and reserve your free, yes, I said free ticket. And by the way, if you want a full VIP package, you can use promo code TBNS for 20% off. That's expatmoneysummit.com, promo code TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show. I think that's at least, one role, to your point, right? If government were to play kind of this education role, but from a policy perspective, right? I don't even view that so much as what we've seen with sin taxes, which I know we're going to dig into it a little bit more. But like, when it comes to welfare recipients, I think it's actually a pretty like logical consistency to say, if you're getting free dollars, you are going to have certain parameters to use those dollars. Just if I donated to you, or if you reach out to me, Sophia, and you're like, hey, Brian, I want to start this brand new, policy, this new policy think tank. And I'm like, cool. And you're like, all I need is 10K. I'm like, all right, rock and roll, 10K coming your way. And then fast forward like 3 months later, and I see that you've gone on all these exotic trips, and you're going out and you're taking pictures with dolphins and you're hiking and stuff. Like, I'd be like, hey, Sophia, how's the think tank going? You're like, oh, we're getting there. Don't worry. And I'm like, okay, well, where's my investment going? Oh, well, I did some corporate retreats, right? And I was using that to like brainstorm ideas. At that point, I'd feel a little effed over, right? Like, come on, like, I'm giving you money and you're supposed to be using it to help build this think tank. That same mentality, I think, from the taxpayer, we're like, if we're gonna be making this argument that welfare recipients or just low income individuals need some assistance from government, okay. But if you're going to be taking that and then using it to buy garbage, and then the other part, buy a lot of crap that you're going to just resell on the side, like as like this is passed through, I'm sorry. I as the person who the money's coming from, the taxpayer, I feel, like it's a big middle finger. So am I on the right path here? Do you see a different way of thinking? Help us, figure out if I'm in the weeds here too much.
I pretty much fully agree with you, Brian. For the most part, when we're giving government money to people, I want them to be empowered to use that in the ways that they see fit. Like when it comes to healthcare insurance, I would rather people have access to money given to them in an HSA so then they can take that money and not be tied to like the Medicaid system. But when it comes to SNAP, and like food stamps, I don't mind really this ban on being able to not be able to purchase like candies and sodas and junk food.
Which, by the way, objectively speaking, are just like empty calories, zero nutritional value, just not good for you.
Exactly. Like I like to indulge in those, but if you're getting benefits to feed your family and your children, I would hope that you're spending that money on healthy, nutritious, sustaining food for them. And so it seems this isn't an issue I've like dug in deeply and looked at how people are spending their money, but I don't think that ban there doesn't really bother me because those people are also likely on government insurance. They're going to be more sick if they're eating all these bad foods, and then it's just going to be more taxpayer expenses. And I think of it the same way with like school lunch programs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like these bans and mandates when it comes to the food supply if it's not going to cause us like horrible pains at the very beginning. Like if something's going to give me cancer, get it out of the food supply. But if it's not like a big thing, then whatever. But when it comes to the school lunch programs, sure, you can ban that. Like that's government money that we're putting into the food. That doesn't bother me. And I think those programs should, at schools, you should have access. You should only be feeding those kids nutritious meals. I remember when I was in elementary school, that's when Michelle Obama's like took over like the school lunch program and
give us back our pizzas.
We all hated it, but like looking back on it, I've never looked at the policy as an adult, but looking back on it just from my idea and me remembering it as a child, like, yeah, that's a good policy. We shouldn't have just been eating junk food. I don't know if our food actually got like that much healthier. I think things became like baked instead of fried, which like is a good step.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And like I think if you're using government money, we shouldn't be funneling it into these giant corporations that are lobbying to have to get more money towards them. Like, no.
Which, by the way, Sophia, I don't mean to derail, but did you see that thing with like when this was all becoming conversation? A lot of like so-called conservative influencers on social media being like, where's the freedom of choice? And they're just like basically turning into spokespeople for these big food corporations. And I'm like, that seems a little shady. Also, what?
Yeah. Like this is like probably like my most unlibertarian idea, but like it's so, yeah, I only have this view when it comes to like government money. And that's because I've seen like how like our food pyramid has just been totally derailed by lobbyists. Like,
and by the way, you say government money, our money that goes to government. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Good distinction. And so that's where it's like, I would rather not have these large corporations taking it over. And I want people to be making good choices. And so I do think there needs to be better like nutritional education. So if you're on SNAP, maybe that's something that they have access to. If in schools, we need better nutritional education in schools because we did not get that. And what we did get was the Got Milk ads that I remember being all over my cafeteria in elementary school. And whatever the food pyramid was where it said we needed to eat so many grains.
30 like servings of breads and carbs. And then like the smallest areas were dairy, proteins, vegetables, fruits. Like it was literally flipped upside down. And we find out kind of on purpose.
Yep. Yeah. So that's when I just think we need to get these companies and these lobbyists out of the way and have actual education because that's not something that we've had. So that ban really doesn't bother me, but I do think it's a very slippery slope when we start allowing bans and mandates, because if you allow one thing, then they're going to do another thing that you're not thinking of.
Well, and let's talk about this because this is where I have some, like, I'm trying to like think through this, talk through this on the show with you, right? Like, I hear you. We should only focus on education. But then I guess my brain goes back to, well, the same forces behind the scenes that got us to the situation where we are today would be the same forces influencing the education side. So like, I can almost guarantee that we're going to see like, here's your nutritional education for K-12 brought to you by PepsiCo, right? Like it's the same thing when you sit down, you're in the middle of COVID and you're watching a segment from Stephen Colbert on The Late Show where he's dancing with the vaccines. And then it wraps up saying today's segment brought to you by Pfizer. Like there will turn into this situation where I almost feel that the government programs for education are going to be like funded by, if not taxpayer dollars, by these big corporations that have a vested interest to like not have us eat good stuff, right? So help me there. Like, how do we address the root cause of these issues? And I'm not saying that big corporations equal bad, but when big corporations plus government, that's where I start to have the issue.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what the answer is to that, because I've seen it like my whole life. Like our nutritional education, our school lunches, like everything was affected by the government and lobbyists together. But then when government goes on its own, and like you were talking about this earlier with the Bloomberg's like soda ban, and that's with just government on its own, not great. But then corporations on their own, not great. And so we need to do something to empower individuals to actually do this do this educational research themselves. And thank God we have so much access to information at our fingertips. Most people do. If not, public libraries do. You can get on their internet. AI will help you figure out what you should actually be eating. I've done cool nutritional plans through AI, telling them, oh, I want to eat more protein, but I don't like this. What should I eat? And what's cost effective? There's cool ways to do that, but you always have to be looking out for corporations and for government creeping in and putting their influence in, because that happens everywhere. And I don't know what the solution is. I'm such a proponent for free markets, but you have this collusion again in free markets. So you just always have to be wary in doing the research yourself at the bottom line.
Well, and like, as I'm gonna filibuster here as I'm quickly scrolling through my Twitter feed, because I had liked this post. This one lady, and this kind of goes back to, let me see if I can find it. It goes back to the underlying issue, right? And that is, we could educate people all day long. We could educate them to death. We could present them all the facts, the figures, the logic, the reason, the why things are good, why things are bad. And certain people will just still make the same old bad decisions, not because like they don't know, but because they're just I don't know what the right word is. They are almost in a state of not caring, I guess. And I can't find necessarily the specific video that I'm looking for. I'll keep looking as we're chatting here today, and I might be able to bring it up. But like the video I am remembering was this one lady who she's doing some TikTok or whatever, and she's just freaking out over MAHA, and she's just like, oh, your organic milk, I don't care. Like, oh, you don't want all these bad things in your food, I don't care, right? And it just feels like certain folks are looking to just be contrarian because the other team, they're the ones supporting some policy. And that might not be fair, but that's what it feels like, at least.
Mm-hmm. This is reminding me, I actually just pulled it up. I wrote a Substack about just my thoughts as a crunchy libertarian on the Make America Healthy Again movement. And I pulled this tweet that I put in the article it's from Laura Matsu. And she says, life really comes at you fast. One day I was a leftist because I was into organic food and not taking pharmaceuticals. And now I'm a far right extremist for being into those exact same things. And so somehow we've like politicized healthy eating. Yeah. And I think that's just because we've like tied the government into it so much. And so we're just such a politicized society, and it's tiring. Like I don't know what the solution is here. I'm a free thinker. I do a lot of research myself. But I'm sure I've also been influenced in some way by people in the government and these large corporations and whatever's going on with social media, that now I want to drink raw milk and have unpasteurized butter and whatever the heck. So I don't know. You just have to keep doing the research on your own. But at some point, you're going to be influenced by someone with power.
You're trying to stay sharp, whether it's for work, learning, or just not forgetting where you left your keys. Been there. But lately, the mental fog hits hard.
And brain fog isn't just stress. It's often tied to poor blood flow and low nitric oxide levels because your brain needs oxygen just as much as your other muscles do. Because without it, you're slower to process, less focused, and more fatigued. And that's one of the many reasons why I trust Cardio Miracle. Not only does it boost nitric oxide for heart and circulation, it supports cognitive clarity, focus, and even mood regulation thanks to its unique blend of L-arginine, CoQ10, vitamin D3, and antioxidant-rich superfoods. So if you're tired of feeling mentally cloudy, give your brain what it's craving. Click the link in the show notes, scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS, which will give you 15% off your order. Just look for the little note on the website saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show.
Yep. Well, not only are you going to be influenced by someone with power, this is a great segue, Sophia. So thank you for setting me up for this. Like those people with power, not only can they influence, they also can help steer policy, right? And this goes to the whole, the underlying conversation we had last time where we're talking about sin taxes and the idea of government trying to like steer people's decision making based on what is good or bad with having an extra cost for whatever that product was. So going back to Mayor Bloomberg in New York City, let's just say he wasn't going to ban it outright or ban sodas outright, right? What the idea of a sin tax would be is saying, hey, you want to get, the little cup of soda, like this little tiny cup that I'm holding up versus, do I have a big cup? I'll use my bigger cup here, right? Versus a big cup of soda. Okay, well, you want the big cup of soda? Guess what? We're going to put an extra, 25-cent tax based on every ounce extra after this little cup of soda, right? So there's an argument being made that that's at least steering things in the right direction. But we do see this then, again, to your slippery slope example, right? It does start to slide down that slippery slope into people saying, well, should we just go ahead and outright ban things? And you had an article you penned over there at the Telegram and Gazette, talking about how, is it Massachusetts? They're looking to ban nicotine and tobacco products for any adult born after 2005. I mean, slippery meets slope, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's insane. In the case of Massachusetts, there's a bill right now where if it passes, and I'm hopeful that it doesn't because I think it's a very slippery slope. If you're born after 2005 and once you turn 21, you will never be able to purchase nicotine or tobacco products.
Crazy.
Which I don't think that's constitutional. I think that's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. The courts in Massachusetts say otherwise, though I think that should be relooked at. But if I want to get a nicotine pouch that's less harmful than a cigarette, and I'm 21 years old, but I just happen to be born in the wrong year. I'm born in 2007 and I can't get that. That's insane to me. I'm a grown adult. I should be allowed to buy the products that I want, no matter what the government says. And that can go into a lot of conversations around different drugs and substances and alcohol. And it reminds me of when, our country turned the legal drinking age from 18 to 21. I know that's something like my dad was affected by, where I think he was right on the cusp where he was allowed to drink at 18 in Maryland when he was in the Naval Academy, but a lot of his buddies had to wait till they were 21. And so it's worrisome to me because a lot of the policy on nicotine and tobacco that Massachusetts passes, they're one of the most progressively liberal states on nicotine and tobacco, meaning they like bans. They're not afraid of bans. They're not afraid of mandates. Everything that they pass in Massachusetts, everything that they pass in California, I've seen go on to the national stage. That's why we now have nationwide, it's 21 and up to purchase nicotine or tobacco products, when my entire life
it's been 18.
It was 18.
Yep.
18. That happened when I was in college. And I remember my friends like being so confused.
By the way, lots of folks in my generation, we're not even aware that happened. Because like we grew up when I was 18 and that just kind of like status quo in our head. But you're right. Yeah, this all happened like what, 2018, 2019, somewhere in there?
Yeah. No, most people my age don't know because like we were already like in the legal age to purchase the products. But yeah, that's ridiculous. Limiting like nicotine amounts, like they tried to do that at the federal level, but Trump came in that time. Banning flavored tobacco products. Like I've just seen all of these different, in my mind, poor ideas because I understand the consequences of bans and prohibitions and mandates that go on from Massachusetts just proliferate around the country. So even if you're living in the South, my home state of Florida, we're not going to see those bans happen at our state level, but they could happen at the federal level if we have a different administration come in. Trump's been pretty pro nicotine tobacco policy, though there's individuals on his administration that are not being exactly truthful or giving great information on these products at the federal stage.
Which, by the way, that kind of goes to my concern about that government being the educators, right? Because if they're not being truthful when we're supposed to have the MAHA folks in an office, like what happens when you get the goofballs back?
Exactly. Like they're just repeating untruths. I don't want to say lies, but just the things that I see them repeating in front of Congress are just not based in fact or reality. And it's so frustrating to me because you can look at the own government, like the FDA and the HHS's studies and their facts, and they're just repeating that more kids are smoking now more than ever, which is not true. Not true. We have the lowest rates of nicotine and tobacco use among youth and adults on historical record.
And alcohol, for that matter.
Yeah, alcohol usage is going down. And
well, that's because everybody's smoking weed now, Sophia.
Who cares? Sorry. I'm so, do whatever you want. I don't care. As long as it's not harming other people, whatever. If it's not on my tax dollars, I don't care. When you start banning things, then people go to jail. People then become in prison for life. Like there's all of these different things. And then you have even more costs from that because we're housing these people in jails. And I get so frustrated because I see all these downstream effects and most people just see, ew, cigarettes, bad, let's ban them. And it's just not as simple as that. It's a lot more complicated.
By the way, I found the video here. I'm going to share this with the wrong screen. So let me know if you can hear this. Let me share. So this goes back to the people who just want to be against something. It feels like. So this gem, she here we go. She had some opinions. Let's listen.
Holistic wellness, crunchy mom, almond mom. If you eat these foods, then you're
not playing. Oops, here we go. I have to actually share the screen. Here we go. Let's go ahead. There we go. Here we go. Listen in.
Holistic wellness, crunchy mom, almond mom. If you eat these foods, then you're stuck and you're gonna die. And I care about you. Shut up! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my fucking God! Shut up! Oh my God! I drink raw milk. No! Holistic wellness.
So like that's the person that I'm talking about, right? Like there are people who could look at objective goods and bads, going back to our previous conversation, and they can take a polar opposite conversation or a polar opposite position in that conversation simply based on who is voicing the other side. And I mean, like just right now we're kind of seeing this with some Make America Great folks where they're like, yeah, Trump and the government just bought 10% of Intel. And I'm like, that's literal socialism. No, we don't want that. No, abort. But they're on board with it because this team is now saying it's good. And what's happening is you're getting some folks on the left who are like, oh, this is bad. I'm like, I'm glad you're saying that. I know you don't believe it, or at least you're just saying it because it's convenient right now. Do you know why it's bad, right? And this is why libertarians, God bless us, like we get into this position where we're so right on the issues, yet nobody really likes to pay attention to us because we don't have any political clout to make it attractive to side with us. So like when you look at these types of folks, it's all reactionary, Sophia. And going into like what we were talking about here from the policy prescriptions that are being suggested, saying banning nicotine and tobacco products for, kids or adults rather, who are born from 2005 or onward, like it just feels that this is a reaction to something. And is this how it's supposed to be? Like, is our policy prescriptions just supposed to be this swinging pendulum of reaction one way versus the other?
That's all I've ever known.
How sad.
I know. So this is actually something like, it's kind of dorky of me, but like I get emotional over because, so I live in the DC area. I live in Virginia, right outside of DC. I lived in DC for 3 years and I work in policy. So like my whole life is just what's going on at the federal level. It's just federal politics. And I work in state politics. Like that's all I can ever hear. And it's exhausting, especially when it's just chaos all the time and everyone is just so reactionary and everyone's so party line driven and just so in their camp and so mean about things. And I'm just in my own little space. I didn't used to think about myself as a libertarian. I grew up in Florida. I actually used to hate libertarians because the libertarians in Florida are crazy people. And they're not nice people. And that's because I didn't realize that there's a difference between the Libertarian Party and libertarian ideology. So I'm small L libertarian. There's a big difference.
That's why, by the way, I caveated my qualifications today. Small L, free market libertarianism, not this goofball big L, goofball party libertarianism that I'll leave that there.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Yeah. So like, that's what I grew up seeing. And then when I moved to DC after college, I started working at the Cato Institute, which is a libertarian think tank, small L. And I loved it. And that's when I realized like, oh, I am a classical liberal. I hate the government. I don't want them to have control over me. Whoever is in power makes poor decisions. One of my majors in college was history. And that's all I realized. That's all I learned is that the government does bad things, no matter who's in power. And so living in this just polarized society, especially in DC, where I can't even escape it because when I went to Whole Foods this morning in my cute little suburban town, there's just a protest going on about Trump. And it's like, I just don't want to see that at all. I want to be able to escape it. And like, I know it's important to talk. It's important to protest. That's not my problem. It's just, it's exhausting. And growing up, like the first presidential election I really paid attention to was 2016. Cause I was in high school. I couldn't vote yet. But that's when I actually like listened to the debates and I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like that's when people started really going crazy. And I always have these conversations with like my older colleagues at work, like, was it always like this? And everyone says, no. And so I wish I knew something different, but I think we're just in this, for now, polarized camp. And that's why I really advocate for people to follow principles, because I am a very principally driven person. I've only worked for organizations that follow strong principles. That's how we make all of our decisions at every place that I've ever worked. It's not based on what President Trump likes or what President Biden likes or who's going to get angry. It's actually like, no, we want limited government. We want people to be empowered and to be making these choices for themselves. And so I think for a lot of people, whether they're far on the right, far on the left, I have friends all over the place. I'm just this political enigma to them because I find a lot of common ground with a lot of people, but then they get angry at me for something. So it's just a tiring place to be at. And hopefully we can find some more common ground. So we're not just getting angry because people want to make America healthy and want more education and all of these different things. But it's hard.
There's a big
Running a small business means adapting on the fly, hiring, scaling down, shifting teams based on seasonal projects. But most phone systems, they lock you into a set number of users and then make it a pain to adjust. And on the contrary, that's where Level 365 shines. Add or remove users anytime. Month-to-month plans, scale up when you need it, scale down when you don't. It's flexibility that actually matches how your business works. No headaches, no overpaying for empty seats. Just phones that move with you, and that is what makes Level 365 different.
So in the world of business, we call this a white space. There's a big white space for common sense where just folks could fill a void that the market is not addressing. And there is this very big left-right like schism, but like Trump and it's not so much him as it was a rejection of goofball politics from the left that helped propel the Republicans into office in 2024, because Scott Jennings over on CNN, he talks about this a lot, the 80-20 issues, right? Where it's just, it feels like common sense almost in some of the positions. And I think that if there was a party, and maybe the GOP is this party right now, I hope they continue to be that party, but if the party can actually embrace 80-20 issues and just meet your average person where they are, right? Like, stop the partisan nonsense, stop the left, like the left versus right, and just like take society with the understanding that we're not going to build a utopia, right? Like, as a libertarian, I know libertopia is not around the corner. I have lots of friends who argue about semantics as though we are in libertopia. And I'm like, guys, let's have that conversation, when we start to reduce the size of the state first. Like, then we can start going into those more semantic stuffs, more of the crazy folks you talked about that you experienced down in Florida. But on the left-hand side of the aisle, right, we hear this a lot. Like, oh, things would be perfect if communism works on paper, which is also bullshit, right? But like that mentality of, if I was able to control all the variables, everything would be perfect, right? And the reality is that that's never going to happen. You're never going to have 100% alignment with every single person in politics or in society. So what we have to be able to do is take a step back and objectively look at things through a common sense perspective. Like, and this is something I've really had to do over the past few years, is get out of the libertarian good ideaing people to death. Like, here's a good idea from libertarians. It's like, okay, that's great if we had certain variables in control. So for example, and this is never a position I held, but I hear a lot of libertarians who make the open borders argument. And then I'll say, okay, well, that doesn't work because there's a welfare state. Oh, well, this would work if there wasn't a welfare state. Okay, well, there is one. Like, what are you going to do? You can't just say this solution makes more sense because on paper it makes sense if we control all these different variables. Okay, well, those variables aren't under control right now. So pushing us forward with this open border solution doesn't negate the negative of the welfare state. So you're only exacerbating the issue, but it's always in pursuit of the ideological purity. And again, going back to the 80-20 issues, the common sense solutions, whatever you want to call them, that is where I think a majority of Americans will be able to find some common ground and go back to what you were talking about, where we're not as polarized. It's not as much of this red team, blue team, left versus right. Like, I don't want that. And to kind of answer one of the pieces you saw from one of your coworkers, right? They're right. It hasn't always been like this, Sophia. But I will say I would rather have this, what we're having today, versus what was. And what was this appearance of unity. This appearance that even though we disagree on a few issues, we're going to be able to, still function as a society. That's almost a myth in my experience. because a lot of what was happening was you were getting force fed one particular viewpoint from one of 3 news channels, and the politicians were all kind of like on the same page, like behind closed doors. They were all on the same page. Maybe public facing, they would be kind of on the same page, but pick 1 or 2 issues. So almost like in a WWE perspective, like create some conflict so people will watch and pay attention. But by and large, people were just kind of like little sheep, I guess. Like, you didn't really have the means to go educate yourself to the extent we do today. Internet wasn't a thing until Al Gore invented it in the 90s. That's a joke. But when you look at where we were versus where we are, I understand why there is such disdain and a lack of trust, because a lot of folks are seeing things for the first time, and it's opening their eyes. Like, how much other stuff have I been lied about? Like, as we talked about today, the food pyramid. That was taught to us, Sophia, when we were in school as though it was like biblical truth. And yet we fast forward to today and see not only is it not the case, but it was actually promoted and more or less bought and paid for by corporate big corporate interests. And that right there speaks to how so many folks can see that and then ask the very common sense next question: what else are they lying about? Right? And I think the more that we kind of take the people who we acknowledge that things aren't right now, but we also acknowledge that the existing solutions, those aren't going to work as well. We have to be creative. I think, the public option approach to society is probably the best option. Like, give people kind of the basic, like, this is what the government's saying is good, right? And have it be the lowest tier, and then open up the floodgates for everything else, right? But like, we're never going to get to a perfect society where government doesn't have a say. And I don't want to pretend that that's the case. On the flip side, we also aren't going to have a situation where government is controlling literally every aspect of our lives. Or will we? I don't know. I hope not. But like, I guess I'll finish with this, Sophia. I am very optimistic. And I think it's Patrick Bet David has the whole, like, the future looks bright, like branding he's been selling and stuff. But I do believe the future looks bright. And namely, I'm not trying to get all, mushy, but like, it's folks like you. You're younger than me by about 10 years or so. Like, your generation, the Gen Z, I think you guys, because you're growing up in this world where, yes, all you've seen is the divisiveness. You've also grown up in a world, though, where you've had access to, like, just endless pieces of information. Like, there are kids that I grew up with. I say kids, they're in their 30s now, but like folks I grew up with who still cite Bill Nye the Science Guy as like, he is the objective truth of science. And I'm like, he's not even a scientist, right? He's a fucking actor. Like, and that for me just, it drives me crazy, because this is the mentality. Like, my generation grew up with Captain Planet. Do you know Captain Planet, Sophia?
No.
No? Oh, good. Because Captain Planet was literally a communist brainwashing show of like, we are all on this planet together. And like, they all came together with their forces unite. There was one part where the guy was like, even if you don't have a brother or a sister, that's okay, because the whole world is our family. And we have to care about like population, growth on the planet. I'm just like, as a kid, you're like, whatever. But as an adult, you look back and you're like, holy shit. That was literal brainwashing. And I see my generation still, the millennials, still in this mentality of the stuff we were force-fed when we were kids as objective truth. And also my generation, oh God, like, they are the best little rule followers, right? So they have to do everything by the book. Like, my father-in-law was just talking about this. He's a nurse. And I apologize for this rant, by the way. He's a nurse, and he was talking about how there was one instance where this lady was coding in front of him. She was having like a heart attack. And all the younger female nurses who were in their early 20s, they were like, okay, well, she was in the room visiting her husband, by the way. That was the context. So this lady is not even a patient. And they're like, okay, well, we have to bring her to the ER, right? We can't do anything here. Like, we got to get her to the ER because then they have to check her in, do all this kind of stuff. And they're trying to follow this fucking manual. Whereas my father-in-law is like, okay, this is a code. We got to start doing this. And he's like telling them what to do, because they were so focused on following these stupid rules versus addressing the problem at hand. This lady is literally dying. And just like, I look at my generation, I say, gosh, guys, like, this ain't it. This ain't it. And I see your generation, Sophia, and I get hopeful, because not only are we seeing a kind of reversion back to more common sense politics, but I think you guys have the ability to like start to look at things and say, is this the best way to do it? Right? Like, can we do things more efficiently? Can we be more effective? Can we empower certain folks outside of government to do things better and differently? I think so. So I will get off my soapbox. That's my final thoughts for today, Sophia. Bring us home. What would you like folks to take away from today's conversation? And of course, where can folks go ahead and check out all the great work you're doing and reach out to you?
Well, I think you're a bit more positive than I am. I think maybe I'm just jaded because of.
Oh, no. You shouldn't be too jaded. You're far too young. You got way too much future to look forward to.
I know. I think it's like COVID happened when I was in college. Like I just had like weird times my entire life. Like 2008, like financial crash. Like remember that elementary school. Then like 2016, like election and like that craziness, like COVID. And then I don't even know. And just living in the DC area, it makes it very exhausting for me. And so I think I really like your positivity, and I think I need to look at it that more so. And so we need to have more unity. And I think people are realizing like on both sides that the government is not the answer. I'm seeing my more like lefty friends like realizing, hey, the government is bad. And like my more like right-leaning friends like last year were like, okay, the government is bad. And now like kind of everyone's coming together on that. So I think we can find unity there. And so I'm hopeful with that. I would just say like my final thought is people need to educate themselves, and we have so many resources now, but you need to be really careful of what's influencing those resources. I hate the word misinformation, but like I get a lot of like misinformation on social media. And like, I know guys, we were told like growing up, don't believe everything you saw on the internet, but like we all do that. Like I'll just see I'll see an Instagram reel sometime because I'm not on TikTok because I'm like, oh, I'm lame. So, and I'll be like, oh, I saw this Instagram reel. Like that's crazy. And I'm like, I should actually Google that to see if that's real. And half the time it's not. And so doing real searching for yourself and not just trusting the government or corporations or whoever
the experts.
Yes. Whoever is like the power to give you that information for yourself, because there's always some sort of influence behind it. Yep. There's going to be an influence in everything, but just like being a free thinker and not just going with the flow. And I think that's so easy to do nowadays with social media. And I even get caught up in it, just living in the DC area and being a Gen Z person. Just sometimes it's like, oh, I wish I could be part of like that winning party and being a part of that group. Cause like groupthink is like kind of comfortable. It's not really fun sometimes to be like out on your own in the weird libertarian field where like everyone hates us. I hate it. I want to be liked. Especially like in the day of social media where you're always looking for validation. But it's okay to be uncomfortable, and I think you'll be better for it going forward. So hopefully more people in our generations will stop with this groupthink and just do their own information searching. But I have lots of thoughts like this. I'm constantly thinking about just libertarianism, how the government sucks, nicotine, tobacco, and all things healthcare and MAHA. And I'm pretty vocal on Twitter. And my tag is Sophie.Hamilton. Or no, it's just Sophie Hamilton. And then I have a Substack sounding off with Sophie, where I rant. And that's where you can find all my thoughts in more longer form.
This has been a lot of fun. And I always forget, do you like Sophie or Sophia better?
I go by both. So
that's right. Okay.
Confusing. Sorry.
No, you're good. Well, I've been sitting here calling you Sophia, and we've been chatting as though you're Sophia. And I'm like, oh God, did I do the thing where I didn't ask the person's name beforehand, like a goofball?
No, you're good. I go by both, and that causes so much confusion with people. The only thing I'll ever get mad about is it's Sophia with an F. So that's how you find me, guys. That's if you want to search me, follow me, Sophie with an F.
There you go. All right. Well. So Sophia Hamilton, whoever you claim to be, thank you for joining us on the show. It's always a great pleasure having you on the show. I think you have a lot of really good perspectives, and frankly, like these are the conversations that folks are having kind of behind closed doors right now, and it's. I don't want to say this is a safe space, but like this is a platform where I want folks to be able to come and just listen to a conversation without a preconceived like narrative. Like I'm not trying to force something down people's throats. I think people have been able to listen to this show for over 1,000 episodes at this point and hear my evolution, understand how I've gotten to where I am today. And by the way, the Brian Nichols of 2018, when we first started this show, to the Brian Nichols of 2025, we're very different people. And I would say in the best of ways. Because it's one thing to have the ism, right? Whatever that ism may be, libertarianism, communism, socialism, whatever, right? But it's another thing to actually like understand the applications in real life and getting out of the think tank mentality, right? Getting out of theory and start getting boots on the ground. Like that is where the real like wins will take place, because it's one thing to make a crazy strong argument. It's another thing to get people to buy what you're selling. And that is, I think where we are right now is a great chance to get people to start understanding the value of our ideas, not just from a feeling good to your point, like, you know, hey, I want to be right, but I want people to like me. Right. But like understanding that not just do our ideas win, but here's how they will objectively make things better. With that being said, though, Sophia Hamilton, it's been a great chat. Folks, please do me a favor. Go ahead, reach out to Sophia if you would like to continue the conversation. And of course, if you're joining us here on YouTube, stick around. You're going to see right about like here, another little video is going to pop up. That's going to be our past conversation where Sophia and I dug more into the whole Zyn conversation. And we actually talked about it more from a like Zyn versus tobacco versus other negative products that are out there, or not necessarily negative, just so-called bad products for you, right? So we dig into that and more. Go ahead, check that episode out. Or if you just want to go ahead and check out any of the past episodes, head to briannicholsshow.com. We have over 1,000 past episodes over there. Find me on X social media, X, Facebook, Instagram at B Nichols Liberty. And of course, if you have not had a chance yet, please support our amazing sponsors like Cardio Miracle here over my shoulder. Head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. Sophia, any final words for the audience today?
Think for yourself, and don't be afraid to be contrarian, to be on the outsides. I think we need more people like that.
There we go. All right. Well, with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show for Sophia Hamilton. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.